in the field, like I'm reading this video and it's not enough. Immersive is a word I use a lot with it.
Yeah.
For it to like get my drift. Like I want to feel like I'm immersed and then
And probably in the complete wrong way for me.
Yeah.
expect to put out versus what I put out.
So there's a lot more ebb and flow than our traditional videos, which are more about conveying the concept, those types of things. Now we're trying to weave in like immersive narrative experience, modeling thinking, and it's all upper level. Like none of this is fact acquisition. Hi, I'm Dr. Brandi Robinson, and welcome to this episode of Learning Out Loud. I am the owner and co-founder of Learner Journey Labs.
Hi, and I'm Sarah Fuselier, the Chief Chaos Coordinator here at Learner Journey Labs.
There's a lot of chaos this week, I think.
So much chaos.
Sarah's been in and out with golf tournaments and kid commitments, and then we've just been really slammed with work on numerous fronts, trying to get some samples out the door and things like that. So there's been lots of chaos coordinating this week in both of our lives, I think.
Right. And then you add the weather on top of it.
Yeah, the weather here in New Orleans has been wild. Like we just keep having torrential downpours and tons of flooding just out of nowhere. So I was pretty excited to get some time in my pool today, which was a rarity, but it was at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So
I didn't think it was supposed to really rain at all. And then as I was driving here, the sky just got darker and darker and then opened up and it was sheets of rain. Like I was doing 22 miles an hour on I-10 and I couldn't see anything.
yeah, that's crazy. So like the weather is reflecting the chaos that we have going on in our lives. So we've very much had Sarah running ragged this week, trying to keep me in line, and I keep all of my mini vision ideas that I have kind of grounded, I think. We held a bunch of trainings this week, and so the topic of this episode kind of intersects with some of the conversations from our trainings, from some of my classes that I've been holding at night with my doctoral students. And that is the idea of human in the loop when it comes to using AI to create course content. And I know last episode we talked about ed tech and the need for educators to be aware of the technology. But I think that there's a separate conversation about instructional designers, assessment designers, even multimedia specialists, and the use of AI in those spaces, and a real need for understanding the types of interactions, the generative nature of it, and things like that. I think just from what we've kind of experienced this week is a good talking point.
Yeah, I agree. And I think especially the last week, my views on this have changed somewhat.
So why don't we start there? So let's talk about like you said the same thing in a training this week. You were like, I tend to like to use my prompts really.
Right. Well, I mean, at my core, I'm a type A checklist loving kind of person. I like a list. I like to be able to check it off. I like steps. And in the past, I guess a lot of what I have done for the company, I don't always do a lot of the asset creation because I'm coordinating all the chaos. So the things that I have done have been mostly repetitive, where I can use the same prompt over and over and over again. So I have Word docs that are like my cheat sheets, and I can just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. And in the last week and a half, I've been forced to step out of just the copy paste and create some of the like text page or even some video scripts, which I have done in the past, but we're changing our process because everything is evolving. And we're evolving to create better content. And I've come to the realization that as much as I like my checklists and I like my standardized prompts, a lot of times you can get garbage.
Mm. And I think it's interesting, like context to have is that Sarah and I have two very different approaches. I never use the same prompt. And like half the time AI gets commentary from me about the output with the prompt. So there will be like lots of colorful, like, what is this? Why did you do that? Like, why did I ask you to do that? Whereas like I find like you and some of the other people that work with us, you guys are more like task focused. Like,
Right.
I need you to do it like this or this. And like, whereas I'm more like, I'm going to give them like an aside or some commentary plus what I need you to do. And that kind of is what creates my chaotic prompting at times, because I don't ever use the same prompt more than once. Whereas like you got, you're more of a checklist person, and we have a few other people here that are definitely more of like a stable prompting type thing. So
Right.
maybe tell us a little bit about like what made that pivot a little bit for you.
Well, and then in looking back on this, a while back we were evaluating some things, creating some things and evaluating. And that's when I'd be like, "Are you sure?"
Hmm.
And I'd be like, "You're lying. No, you didn't actually look." Or, "Are you really sure this time? For real?" And it's funny because now when I use it, a lot of times it'll say, "Yes, I'm sure," before I can ask it. But then also I started asking it, "Is this good to go?" And
Hmm.
now it'll be like, "If you do this, it will be good to go." And I'm like, "Okay, then let's do that."
Hmm.
Um, and so it was kind of in that process where I realized, like, okay, you need to step out a little bit here and there. But in the past week, when I was trying to do things, I was like, I don't like this. Whereas usually the things that I'm normally creating, they're so standardized, like the intros and the outros. There's not a whole lot of creativity,
Yeah.
or it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's following like a template. It's like fill
right.
in the blank. Yeah.
Yes. More That's a perfect way to say it. More templated, repetitive content, or repetitive, like the intros are all gonna match. They're just taking the content differently. So, working in video scripts, I was like, "Oh, well, I can just do something similar." And then I got it and I was like, "I don't like any of this." And I think it was because I was doing something more creative, or
Mm.
where there was more room for interpretation,
Hmm.
or
There was
like,
more room for human judgment. Like
yeah.
that's the crux of it, is like when you're doing like video scripts, there's more room for you to say like, as an expert in the field, like I'm reading this video and it's not enough immersive. Immersive is a word I use a lot with it,
Yeah.
for it to like get my drift. Like I want to feel like I'm immersed in the narrative. So I think like, yeah, I think what you're saying is like in the human in the loop, and how we talk about human in the loop, we talk about where is the human judgment.
Right.
So I think like there's a lot more opportunities for human judgment throughout that process, where it can go really wrong if you're not kind of making those like pivots, or those like you're getting off track, go a little bit back this way.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I've been so used to doing the more templated tasks that people have run out of time. And so I'll just, "Oh, okay, I can hop on, I can do that." Because I can also, since they are so formulaic, I can be doing other things. Like I
Yeah.
can be talking to someone, helping them work through a problem, and I can be copy pasting. And so, this last week when I was tasked with doing something completely out of the scope of what I've been doing and somewhat out of my comfort zone.
Hmm. Fair.
Um, and I mean, I have done it before, but this new process is stepping it up and kind of stepping out. And I was just like, I don't like what I'm producing. I need to talk to it more.
Yeah. And I think like for context for those of you listening, we have made a pivot in our course design structure for the nursing program that we're working with. After kind of reflecting on the gaps that students have, what their pain points were, what the faculty were saying, we decided to integrate in our text pages and in our videos these immersive clinical judgment scenarios that are really meant to be like it feels like you're in the room with the patient, and like you're literally having to like stop and decide, and like the thought process that a nurse would go through is like modeled to you. So there's this interesting, like for me when I'm doing the scripts, because I'm chaotic, so I love it because every script is totally different. And
Right.
I think that's another piece of it, is that every script is different, and the thinking that we're teaching is different depending on the symptoms, the patient's age, the course we're even in. Sometimes we're worried about certain elements and not others. There's communication, where the nurse has to communicate, and we've got to make sure that the way the nurse is communicating is in scope. So every video is just really, really different. And so there's tons more room for the human to step in, and like an AI is not going to know that's immersive,
Right.
or an AI is not going to know, like, actually a nurse isn't going to say cool job, like, like, to be over exaggerated. You're like, when it writes like the quotations for me, I'm like, no one actually says that.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't sound right. So there's a lot more ebb and flow than our traditional videos, which are more about conveying a concept, those types of things. Now we're trying to weave in like immersive narrative experience, modeling thinking, and it's all upper level. Like, none of this is fact acquisition.
Yeah. And it's just so different, and that's what really made me realize that while I like a checklist, it's not necessarily the best.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, that like in the trainings we've had and the conversations we've had too, um it's a very different vibe as a course developer when you're reading those scripts,
Mhm.
because we always say that like we put ourselves in the shoes of the learner and that's what we do, but like with these scripts there's no fact acquisition, so there's really like a lot of gaps if you didn't go through and like walk through the assets. So like there's a lot of judgment that has to happen about like, okay, this script doesn't teach this word, but can we infer what it means from the scenario, and things like that. So I think there's just an extra challenge, and I think that for me that introduces more of a conversation, because I'm like, okay, wait, like I'm not understanding what's happening here, like explain to me why the nurse does this.
Right.
Well, I even tell it like, what was the nurse thinking, and then I'll kind of like talk back and forth, and I'll be like, okay, I want to weave this into the script. So it's almost like I have to suss out what's missing,
Mhm.
because it's like I know it's missing, I can't put my finger on it. So I have the conversation, figure out what's missing. Then I'm like, okay, now put that in. And
Right.
that's completely like blows up your checklist or your prompting process.
Right. It really does. And I think I'm not to where you are yet, but I'm coming around to the idea of this is why you're chaotic and you don't use the same things. And I think probably a blend of the two.
Yeah.
Like, I think you need the same starting out point, and I think you probably don't even realize you do a variation of the same prompt to start, and then you deviate from that. So I think it really needs to be a combination of the two.
I would agree. So I would say, kind of when I teach this to my students, I talk about human in the loop. I'm like, you have a task. So in our case, it's writing a video, and that task has a process. So there's all these steps.
Mhm.
And the way that I teach it is, okay, what are the steps to getting to a video? And then who owns the step? Is it the human? Is it the AI? And AI should never own more than one step at a time. Like, it should
Right.
always be like one step, human does something. One step, human, human, human. So there's kind of like this feeling. And I think that I follow that. So like when I was doing the training this week, one thing that I was talking about was, if you try to get the conversational tone that we aim for here at Learner
Mhm.
Journey Labs, it's signature for us, in the beginning, it actually makes the script awful, because the AI is so focused on being conversational that it doesn't actually teach the content.
Right.
And it
It should
tries to be like
really,
surface.
yeah, that should be done at the end once you have. I feel like that would be, again, probably because 'cause we're from New Orleans, I'm gonna compare it to food. That would be like the gravy. Like, you have your meat and you have your potatoes, and then the tone is like the gravy on top or the seasoning.
Yeah, I would say,
And a lot of times that you don't start with the seasoning, you start
yeah.
with your protein or whatever.
Your basic ingredients. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and kind of the way that we do our video process is, where we plan it out. So we have like a design phase, and we've got like a worksheet that our ecosystem works with and fills in. So basically the entire video is planned out based on a module level objective, enabling objectives, guardrails, production notes, like what used to be really simple with us and just have like one objective
Right.
has kind of like blown up into this like, okay, now there's a guardrail and there's a production note and there's a scope note and there's a this note.
Right. Who knew nursing curriculum would become this complicated?
I know, right? It's a whole blast. It's very different.
It's been really interesting, but it's been really hard to wrap our brains around it.
Yeah. I think it illustrates like there is a healthcare gap, and now I know why, because it's really hard to wrap your head around it.
Right.
And like hard to design for, because I mean, I come from a STEM background, so I'm like math, science, physics, chemistry, organic chemistry, and just the healthcare balancing the soft skills with the science with everything. It is a lot of wrapping your head around, and like there's a lot of things that like no, the nurse can't prescribe, no, the nurse can't do this. So like AI is really bad at knowing what nurses' jobs are, and so we've had to create like all of these notes within it. And so, but when we're looking at like the process, the meat, the potatoes, the main ingredient is like accomplishing those objectives within the guardrails.
Right.
And so, that was kind of what I said in my training was like the first thing we have to do is get that initial draft. And then we have to evaluate the draft using the worksheet that it filled out. So we basically have it fill out a worksheet, and then it's like a checklist. Like it did this, it did this, it did this. And inevitably it doesn't do it all because it just is not. Even like we're using 5.6 Soul for those of you who are OpenAI users. Learner Journey Labs swapped over Friday to Soul. And even with Soul, the initial output is, I don't want to say garbage because I think garbage insults my own system. But I would say like it's maybe 40% of the way there.
Right. And when I said garbage earlier, that's garbage for what I expect to put out versus what I put out.
Right. And
critiquing my own work more so than the system.
Absolutely. So, we have this thing. And so the first thing we have to do is make it accomplish all of the objectives within the guardrails. Like that's the first thing. And I was like, inevitably, when that happens, it's going to be too long. It's going to be too wordy. It's going to teach too many things. So, but what we have to do is get all of those ingredients there. And then we start streamlining. We start saying like, here's the exemplar. Notice how it's streamlined. What can we do to this script to streamline it? Or, here's the exemplar. Look at the runtime. Is there repetition we can tighten? And we have to be careful with our wording in those, because if you say like cut, it just removes key ingredients and then you're back to start.
Right.
Which I think is like why having these conversations as course designers is important, because you got to notice why it messed up. Well, it messed up because you told it to cut information, not to like tighten it or streamline it or,
make it more concise.
Make it more concise. Like it's very literal. It reminds me of like my youngest child. You cannot tell her anything that is like remotely literal and expect her to interpret it in a non-literal manner.
Right.
AI is very much like that. So a lot of times when we're doing these trainings and I'm like, hey, use streamline, use concise. Like I don't always think people understand that like, yes, my prompts are chaotic, but there are nuances that I follow because I understand AI and I understand that like it's super literal. So if you say like cut the repetitive information, it's literally going to take out the key information from the objective. And then you wind up with me coming back to you as colorful language saying like, why did you do that? And it's like, because you told me to cut information, so I cut it.
Right. That's why I use concise a lot, or I use tighten up. I'm also in the back of my head laughing about your youngest because remember when she had the science lab and she needed rubbing alcohol?
Oh, yeah.
And she said she couldn't do it because we only had 97%.
Yeah.
She thought it had to be 100 because it just said
rubbing
alcohol in the list. And in the science kit that they sent 97%. And so she went on a giant rant.
Yeah. So come to find out, like 3 days later, we find out she's not been doing her science lessons because she needed 100% rubbing alcohol.
Well, she thought she needed.
Yeah, she thought she needed it.
When really it was, they don't even I don't think they sell,
I don't think they do either. I mean, like, I don't know, but yeah.
but
But, like, that's how literal it is, and
right.
so, like, when we host these trainings and when we talk to other course designers, like, one of the things with human in the loop and having the conversation is understanding how it reacts and noticing patterns.
Right.
And that's where, like, for me, I keep encouraging people, like, have the conversation. Every time the model changes, and OpenAI is pushing new versions of these models like once a month now. And
Right.
then as the model creates new memories about you, that same prompt gets a different reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to notice the nuances of like, okay, when I said this, it did this. And I actually wanted it to streamline, not cut. So, that's kind of where I think my push to have the conversation is really more about understanding like the action reaction
Mm-hmm.
of like what happens to the output when I say this versus that, and then learning to speak the language of the AI because it's literally kind of like it has its own language.
Right.
And not scientific language, y'all, because every time I get on LinkedIn and I see somebody posting about how they have to have these scientific prompts, I want to scream. Not the case.
She really does. And if you saw her actual prompts, you would laugh because I had to take one of her threads and try and create a rough draft of a job aid or a conversation you could have, and it was really funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
I know.
didn't even curse in that one, but it was just like, I don't like that. Fix it. Or can you do that again?
Yeah.
Or it was
Analyze
just
it differently was like one of
right.
them. I was like,
Evaluate,
analyze that differently. You didn't come to the right conclusion.
and it was like revise it, evaluate it again. And so I think in some ways your steps are repetitive, even though your prompts are not.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Like that's kind of where I was headed is like I think I have a process and
Yes.
that human in the loop process is what I have and I understand the order of things that I have to do them in. It's just the way that I get there and the
Mhm.
wording might be different and I think part of that depends on my mood and how sassy I'm feeling that day. And then the other part of it is like what the output is doing and like
Right.
how I'm reacting to it.
But I was laughing trying to create, the job aid or the example, and I was just laughing because I was like, if you're like me, you're just gonna copy paste this in and you're not going to get the same response because what it gives me is gonna be different than what it gives you
Yeah.
because they are somewhat linked to your system reacts differently to you than it does to me. And so I was just laughing and I was like, I don't know how well this is going to translate.
Yeah.
I hope it helps, but anybody who saw it, I kept emphasizing that it was a very rough draft.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the crux of talking about things today is as course developers, we need a stable process and we need to know like I can't do tone first because if I do tone first, I get a super flawless output that's very superficial. It doesn't actually teach anything. And I think very much like we talked about in the last episode with educators that there's not this freedom of like, let's explore it. Everyone's just like, oh, AI's on the scene. Now you have half the time that you had before to meet your deadlines, which doesn't give you time to explore.
Right. But you need to explore to see what it's actually capable of doing.
And I think like for us, we don't just use AI in our workflows. Like
No.
we use it for things at home. Like we were literally setting up for this podcast and we bought a new I think it's called a mixer board. But like we bought a new mixer board, couldn't get it to work. Things kept messing up, so I'm like, okay, let me pull up chat because I had to analyze what was the closest version to something we had recommended.
Mhm.
And so I think the two of us, like, we interact with it outside of course development. And so, yes,
Right.
we have like super tight deadlines, but I think we also like use it like Google, like you've said,
Mhm.
for B, or like I use it like I put together a massage chair thanks to Chat GPT.
Yeah.
I sent it the Amazon link and I was like, I can't find this part. Where is it at? And it found like Reddit
Oh.
like sources
Yeah.
and it told me exactly where to go to find the part that I couldn't find.
Interesting.
So I think like we have those conversations, so we have a little bit more insight into like how to speak to it.
Mm-hmm.
And in those moments, like how many times are you going to put together a massage chair? I hope not more than 2.
Right.
So you don't like develop this like templated approach because it's a
Correct.
one-off.
Right.
And so I think that both of us doing that is a strength that translates to having the conversations.
Right. And I think I've probably had the conversations more. I'm probably repeating myself too, just because chaotic week. But I think I've had those conversations more than I realized. I think it just has become somewhat second nature, or I don't think I'm having the conversations like you're having. And so I've always thought that I'm not having the conversation. I think there are levels too.
I can see that because I think the way that I approach the assets when I create them is like I want to understand it as if I could make an A on the exam the next day.
Mhm.
So I do find that like I will dig a lot further into like what am I supposed to get out of this? How does it relate to the NCLEX? Like I really like ask it a lot of questions,
Right.
and then I take that and I will manipulate an output. And I don't think that that's necessary. I think a lot of that is just who I am as a
Right.
person and like how curious I am, which is, I mean, hello, learning out loud. We're all about curiosity here. It's for a reason. And I think that it is a different conversation for me because I want to like get all the nooks and crannies of it.
Right. And I think medical dramas, like I can't even really watch medical dramas, and so creating nursing content is a huge stretch for me because I get queasy. I get this. Like when I was in the classroom and like kids were like, "Oh, I feel like I'm going to throw up." I'm like, "Just don't run. Like run. I don't
Just
want to
run.
see you throw up because most likely I will throw up." Um I got pink eye one time because I had touched a door handle that is a student in a completely another grade had touched. That's the only thing we could come up with. But I got pink eye, and now that's like one of my biggest fears in life.
Oh, wow.
So, because it's so gross.
It is gross. It is gross.
And I had never gotten it until I became a teacher. And so for me, it's a huge stretch. So sometimes while I am a very curious person, I don't want to know about that.
You're just like, no.
No.
And I was making a PowerPoint this week for a course.
Maternal health.
It wasn't maternal health.
Oh.
But it was like about
That's my least
it was about the
favorite.
Poland and stuff. And I was just like, oh, I like messaged one of the nursing curriculum people and I was like, seriously, I'm making your PowerPoint and like I'm so grossed out.
Yeah.
Like I was like, the images the system is making are not okay right now. Like I don't want to look at them. And like I think the other thing that might be unique about like our company and how I function too is like I still make all the assets.
Right.
Even though like I'm at the top of kind of the food chain, I get a lot of happiness and joy from still doing that work.
Well, and like you always say, when you stop doing the work, you stop learning.
Yeah.
So, and you're never going to stop learning.
No,
It's not in your nature.
I've literally just found a way to get paid while I learn. Like my husband's so happy I don't have to pay tuition and I still learn. Like that was his thing when I got my doctorate. He's like, you're just going to live in school constantly. And I was like, no, I picked a career path that like I can just get paid to learn.
You're still technically in school, just not in the way that you have to pay tuition.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that influences the way that I have conversations because I really want to get it. And like we joke with one of the directors because she's like, Brandy's just gonna like fly out one day and just take the NCLEX. Like, and I'm like, you think I'm not? Like, I keep Googling like what state can I go and just take the test and just see how it goes because I'm curious, you know?
When I think the other day, one of them was like, Sarah probably could do it too. And in my head, I was like,
Yeah.
Like Sarah skims and gets grossed out. And the funny thing is, when we've done other projects, I'll go deep dive, or even like when we're talking and something like pops up, a news headline, like I'm the first one out of the two of us to be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then I go and I Google or I ask chat and all of the things. But for whatever medical content is
just not your jam. You're just like, no thanks.
No.
Yeah, you would not like the pit. You would not be a fan
Well,
of the pit.
James loves the Chicago shows, and my son is the same way. My husband loves them, and he loves Chicago Med, and that's usually right around dinner time, and
Mhm.
B is the same as me. Like, he gets grossed out, and now we usually eat dinner at 7 when it comes on, and now we make James wait until we're finished because
Poor James,
it
man.
gets I can't like, I've learned when they start doing the surgeries or anything, I just look down. Like, I can hear it, I just don't wanna see it.
Mhm.
But the whole thing, Brandon just gets
It's just too
gross,
much.
right? Which is funny because I know people that get grossed out about losing teeth, and that kid lost his teeth in the most random ways.
All of our kids did, let's be honest.
Um,
Like,
I mean, we had
flying across the dinner table was like, out on the
uh,
cruise, bleeding on your Easter Sunday shirt, and then, like, yeah, beheading.
Brandon food, like, one time, like, a Dorito, eating a Dorito, cosmic brownie, Starburst, um, a chocolate-covered graham cracker at Starbucks. Yeah, imagine asking a barista for a pastry back for a tooth.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just
So, but, like, he had all of those, and it didn't phase him at all, but I know other people that, like, the blood and loss of tooth, but, like, he can't
yeah.
watch
But I
anything.
don't think it's the blood for you. I mean, it's yeah, I get it. Like, there's really not a boundary for me of
Yeah.
something I don't wanna know.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of a unique thing about me. Like, I will have a lot of really strong opinions in an English class,
Mhm.
but I will still want to learn what's in that
Right.
English class. I just might fundamentally disagree with whoever that professor is. And that's why, like, if I have to pick a subject that I don't like, it's English
Yeah.
because most professors don't let you have an opinion.
Right.
And yet it's their
It's
opinion.
and it's
And then
it
you tell them it's their opinion
right.
and they lose their mind
And I
on
think
you.
English is one of the most subjective because what resonates in a story for me is not necessarily gonna be the same as you
Right.
or anyone else.
And so, like, for me, when I'm working with that content, because I have had to write English classes, very unfortunately. When I do that, my conversation is very much about, like, I want to know what everyone thinks about this story. And, like, I want to know, like, what are all the possible interpretations. And so I think that, like, that just translates into whatever subject matter that I'm working with, and there's just
Right.
not really a boundary for me because all of it's just intriguing. Like, even if
Yeah.
I fundamentally disagree with something, I still wanna know it exists, and I still wanna find out what makes it tick.
The interesting thing was I was looking at something for one of the mental health courses, um, and that intrigued me the most out of any of them that we've done so far.
Mhm.
But I think it's the guts and the potential gore that get me in nursing, or, like, I also have a very vivid imagination,
Yeah.
so when I start reading about blockages or things like that, I just visualize it,
Mhm.
and probably in the complete wrong way, if we're being really honest, but it just grosses me out.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kinda makes sense that you don't wanna have, like, as in-depth of a conversation as I
Right.
do, but I think you still have enough of a conversation so that you're looking at the output and you're like, like, I'm not grasping this, and if I'm not grasping it, then the student's not
Right.
grasping it." Because you're seeing, like, the evolution of, like, from an objective to all the facts to everything, whereas that student's only seeing the final product.
Right.
So, if we can't understand it, and I think,
No.
like, I do a lot of consulting work, and I have lots of conversations with lots of different vendors and providers of education. And I think, like, the thing that I'm having the hardest time with right now
Mhm.
is that no one wants to have iteration. And so I think, like, when I say have the conversation with the AI and not just prompting it, I really think, like, what I'm trying to communicate is it's iterative.
Mhm.
And that iteration is gonna depend on, like, what that output is.
Right.
And so I get very in my feelings when I see something and I'm like, "That's the first thing that AI gave you."
Right.
And I know it is because
Mhm.
I cringe at the first thing. Like, I have a highly trained system. We have 92 different GPTs that all do one highly specialized function,
Mhm.
and that first output is still not good.
No.
I mean, it's not. Like, I look at it and I'm just like, like,
Well, and I think people don't want to have the conversation because you turn on the news and it's AI is taking over the world and AI is going to make you lose your job and AI thinks. It doesn't think.
No,
Like
it's
I tell
dumb.
people, it's like
Totally dumb, y'all.
it's a toddler or your toxic ex with all the little red flags. You've never heard me say
I've not
that.
heard you say your toxic ex. That's a new one. That's a new one.
It is
It
because
just lies to you, though.
it
Is that why?
lies.
Because it
It
lies.
lies or it does the same stupid stuff that you don't want it to do. And you're like, I told you not to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think this past like 6 months, I don't know, on social media, it's always been like the red flags and the beige flags. And that's what made me think of it because AI has so many dang red flags in it.
It does. It does.
But
you recognize the flags because like I think you'll do the same thing I do. Like you can look at that initial output and be like, click, didn't meet the objective. Click, didn't
Right.
do the. It's like you're clocking like each of those flags. And so I think you also get frustrated despite how sunny you are. Like when you see someone's work and you're like, I know that's like the first or the second thing that came out. Whereas like I am ungodly fast at making assets because I read. And a lot of people, I think people don't realize like I read vertically. So like I read very quickly as I go through and I make like instantaneous decisions based on things that other people kind of like, I feel like you kind of will like really internalize first. Whereas like I'm going to look at it and be like, nope, nope, nope. Like I'm
Right.
just quick to judge. But I think that like we both know what those flags are. Like we both know those toxic traits that like the first script comes out, it doesn't fully meet the objective. The first assessment question comes out, the correct answer is double the length of every other answer, no matter how smart. I don't care if you're using Fable 5, it still messes it up. So I think like when we see that and we're just like, really? Like, really?
Well, that's like a couple times when, May's needed help on school and you've been busy and I'm like, well, I have a minute, I'll help you. And like on her worksheet assignments or, there'll be a multiple choice question. And again, one answer is this long and the others are like this long in Canvas. And I'm like,
All the time. All the
and
time.
it's always the longest. It's the right one.
Yeah. And what drives me wild is I know that was the first output because I know what the first output looks like.
Right.
And even though I'm really fast at doing things, even if I only spend a half an hour, I can guarantee there were 30 plus revisions. Like, especially because it might take me a half an hour, but I've got 5 tabs that roll in.
Yeah.
And so like there are 5 assets being created at one time. And so I look at like those types of questions and I'm like, y'all,
Right.
you know?
And I think it goes back to even if I write an email, usually, or whatever I write, usually the first draft isn't good. So why are you going to expect a machine to come out with a first draft that's good?
Well, and I feel like this is kind of again, I get super frustrated when I see this stuff, but I think like the root of my frustration is like, are we forgetting as course designers what good looks like? Because 5 years ago, a question where the correct answer was double the length of the incorrect would never have flown.
No.
It would not have flown. So like that's where I'm like, what are we doing as like a group of instructional designers or course developers or assessment specialists or SMEs?
Right.
Like, why is it okay now when we know it's not a good practice?
Like it's because people are expecting tech to do too much or more than it's capable of.
Yeah. Well, and I think they take the human judgment out. So like there's multiple people in our space, and I get asked this question a lot with a particular client that we work with in consulting capacity, and they're like, "You're a unicorn. I can't find anyone else like you." But the rules of the company prevent them from licensing our tech.
Right.
So I can use the tech as a consultant, but they can't use the tech. And so like scaling things is really challenging. And so I have sat in on so many sales pitches for these AI, like course development, video scripts, assessment writing. And like I'm sitting in there and I'm just like flabbergasted. I'm like, really? That is what your thing put out and you're selling it for how much money?
And people are in academia are gobbling it up.
Yeah.
And It's terrible.
It it's just it's mind-boggling to me that we're looking at, like, and I'm looking at this output and, like, I'm horrified. I'm legitimately horrified, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, "Okay, so I would prompt this, fixed."
Right.
But again, like, the product that's being shown isn't about prompting, having conversations, or iterating. It's like, "Oh, Imma give you an objective, and then you're gonna get the output, and ta-da, done." Or, like, you might get to see, like, an outline, then the output, and I'm like, "Okay, but that's the problem."
Right.
Like, the human has to be in every checkpoint of the process, and that output has to be iterated on because AI cannot do it. It doesn't have human judgment capabilities.
No. It's just pulling the content and trying to mash it into.
Yeah. And, like, I think a great example of this is, like, when we were working with the multidimensional care courses, and we revamped the curriculum because we had so many topics in our expanded objectives that it was literally trying to relate bariatric surgery to, like, I don't know, something wild. Like, like, there
Okay, I
are
know what it
overlaps of, like, mental health and other things, but it was something that I was just like, no.
The math wasn't mathin'.
No, I mean, like, it would be like, okay, bariatric surgery causes seizures because the words were in the objective. And instead of, like, thinking about it logically, like, no, those things aren't connected. It's a machine.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, this is in the objective. It hallucinated so hard.
Right.
And I was just like, no, 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 we've got to separate these things.
Well, and I think that's something, the hallucinating part is something that people talk about or might mention, but I don't think anybody realizes it's as prevalent as it is.
And I think, like, they don't realize it's prevalent because, again, they're not looking at the output and iterating on it.
Right.
Like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't believe you.
Right.
Like, my kids sing the, like, "Why You Always Lying" song, like, every time somebody lies in the family. And, like, I look at that output and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I think you're like making some stuff up right now.
Right.
And every time it's like, oops, and it's always like an oops, or like, I'm sorry, or like some type of, like,
You're right.
you're right. And I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, why would you do this? And so it just really feels like we're losing track of, like, what quality is, and we're putting out just trash. Like, there's just
Mhm.
not a nice word for it. Like,
No.
you know,
And the sad part is people aren't learning. And so you're creating these are tools that can help learning
yeah.
if you use them correctly.
Well, and, like, they can help speed you up. So, like, I would say our timelines are wild. Like, we can do an entire course in 3.5 weeks.
Right.
And that is all white glove, customized content, high multimedia. And we have so many different tools that help us do that. So, yes, we can go fast. But every asset has to be iterated on and locked and human vetted. We don't just say, like, oh, we're going to put this in and we're going to what we call one shot it. So one shot is one prompt, one output, you go with it.
Right.
Or, like, instead of a process where it's like the human and the AI, it's like all a chain of AI steps, like agentic AI with 5.6 Soul. I was looking on LinkedIn this morning and they were like, now you can give it the objective and ask it for the outline and then get the final product all in one prompt. And I was like, but why?
Right. And
Like,
I think
I need to vet the outline.
right. And I think in templated tasks, like you can do it. Like when I do an intro or an outro, that's a one-shot thing because it just is. There's not a whole lot with how our system, well, I should back up. With our system, how it's programmed and the GPT we're using, it's programmed to do it in a very concise way based off the objectives. So there's not a whole lot of iteration that needs to happen
Yeah.
on that. But an intro to a module is very different than a video script.
Right. And a video script, it's like Bloom's level 4.
Right.
Like, that's the one that gets me, and it's like I was correcting a course, actually, that another vendor did this week, and I had a call, and they were like, "It's bad." And they were like, "We need you to not redo it. We need you to have, like, a scalpel."
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, "Okay, it has to be, like, really bad for them to say that
Right.
because, like" So I open it up, and, like, I'm talking like rookie mistakes, right? So like there's a green check mark, like the little emoji check mark
Oh, yeah.
next to the correct answer. There's like a red X by every incorrect answer. And I'm like, y'all, this vendor one shot prompted all of this.
Right. And then didn't even go back and clean it up.
And didn't even take out the emojis. Like, who does that in 2026? You're going to leave the AI emojis in? Like, I think AI emojis are fun. So if you ever see, like, Sarah sees my threads all the time. So I will, like, be very colorful. And I will even ask the AI to give me emojis to just liven up the thread. But like, I don't put in my output. And I'm like,
they don't make it into the course.
Yeah, like they don't make it into the course. And I'm just like, what? Why? Like, why would you? And I'm looking, and the correct answer is double the length of all the incorrects. The feedback gives away the correct answer. And then the correct answer, it was supposed to be a level 4 question, and it was just straight recall because the paragraph before gave the answer exact verbatim. They didn't even reword it. And I'm just like, this is where we're at in the course development world. And I just, again, 5 years ago, you would have looked at this and gone, that's trash. You're fired.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it's okay to put it out. And I'm like, we have students that are like more choosy ish or like judgmental. I don't know the right word. Like selective, like they can learn in so many different places that they have the luxury of being like, that's bad. I don't want to do that.
Right. With everything going online and remote, you don't have to be in person. And so if you don't like what you see online,
you can just go find another online provider. Right. Like it's such like a consumer market. And so it's baffling. Like as I'm going through these platforms and I'm consulting and I'm looking at things, and I'm like, AI is such a powerful tool for learning, but us learning people, we're messing it up. We are doing it wrong. We're not critically evaluating the outputs. We're not iterating. Like I look at it as, remember back in the day when you trained an intern or you trained like the new person, right?
Right.
If a new person wrote a question like that, you would not let that fly because your name is on the paper with theirs.
Right.
So like, it's no different. Like the skill set is no different than when you were training a new employee.
Right.
Fix it, iterate it, tell it, call it out, but like
train it,
read the script. Does it make sense? If it doesn't make sense, you need to iterate on it. And like the other thing that's really interesting is like the other day I was like, something is off in this script. Like it met the objectives, but I was like, something's not right and I don't know what it is. And so I literally asked the AI, I was like, something feels really off. You have all the right content, but something is off. And it actually hit the nail on the head. It was like, it's the progression of how we were doing it and the order of the concepts. It was like, if I take this piece and I flip it here, it'll be more like, it'll flow better.
But it was going in like the enabling objective way.
Yeah, I was going in the order of the enabling objectives when they didn't logically make sense. And so like I could have very easily put it out there, it checked the boxes, but like again, I read the script and I was like, I just like something's not right. I don't like it.
Right.
And so like at the end of my rope, I'm like, what do you think, AI? And it was like, oh, if we flip this and this. And so like when it flipped it, I was like, I like this. This is good. But I never would have known that if I didn't like have the conversation. And I think it is such a machine, but like it does reorder things. And like that's where the power of it is like it can swap out terminology. It can change the metaphor. It can change the hook. And it can do all of that way faster than we can think. But like we have to drive the conversation with it. And like I have to be willing to say like something's wrong. I don't know what it is. Like what's your insight?
Right.
And I think like if you ask that question, you'd probably get somewhat of a different answer because it's keyed.
Right.
So like it knows that the outputs that I am like, because I always tell it like lock it in whenever like I'm good with something. So I think to some degree it's like, oh, she prefers this because it remembers and my memories are turned on. Whereas, like, if you weren't able to put your finger on it, it might have a different suggestion based on the pattern of like
Right.
what you consider to be good final output.
Right.
So I think, I think like the moral of the story for all of our fields is really that AI is a tool that you must iterate with
Right.
and you must use your judgment. And you can't just like, I'm telling you, if you accept the first 20 iterations of it, it's not good.
No.
Like if you've only iterated 20 times, it's probably not good.
Probably so.
And so I think I'm going to leave everyone with that thought is that pay attention to how much you're iterating with things because it should take time. It's faster because it can crunch the numbers, it can rearrange, it can change the wording, it can find a different metaphor way faster than I can because I'll sit there for 3 days trying to think of it. Um, but at the end of the day, like if you're not doing numerous iterations with it, you don't have a good product. And if any vendor is trying to sell you a tool for course development that doesn't involve multiple checkpoints where you're iterating multiple times in those checkpoints, that's garbage.
Yep.
And so use that as a litmus test as you have these conversations so that I don't have to come in as a consultant and I don't have to go, really? Like, really? Because they always ask me afterwards, and I'm like, well, what do you think? Like, did you see what I saw? Because I saw like obvious problems.
Right.
So, thank you guys for hanging out with us today. All of our strong opinions are still here, but definitely iteration is a key piece and have those conversations. Find the words that get what you're looking for from an AI for whatever your use case is. That exploration is something that I think is going to be key, whether you're a learning person, whether you're somebody in a different field. It's really just learning how to talk to it and understanding the limitations it has as a machine.